The aliens hovered in their colossal warships, their metallic hulls gleaming under the cold void of space. They didn't see us as a threat. They didn't even see us as worthy opponents. To them, we were nothing more than a primitive species fumbling with fire while they wielded the power of the stars. Their laughter echoed through intercepted transmissions, mocking, condescending, filled with the certainty of their own superiority. For weeks, they had broadcasted their amusement, their voices layered with cruel amusement. "These humans think they stand a chance?" one had said, its voice distorted but unmistakably amused. "They build tiny ships and call them weapons. How adorable." Another alien, a commander of their fleet, had chuckled. "Let them struggle. It is always entertaining to watch lesser species resist before they break." Humanity had heard every word. And we remembered. The invasion had come swiftly, just as the doomsayers predicted. They arrived in waves, their ships blacking out the sky, blotting out the stars. Their technology was beyond anything we had ever seen. Shields that deflected our missiles like raindrops, weapons that turned entire cities to glass. They had no reason to negotiate, no reason to fear. They had already decided the outcome. Except for one thing. They thought they knew everything about us. They thought they had measured our capabilities, calculated our limitations, understood our weapons. But they were wrong. Because what they couldn't see, what they never saw, was the fleet that wasn't there. Hidden in the darkness, silent as the grave, humanity's last hope waited. The stealth fleet. A project whispered about in secret military circles, developed in absolute secrecy, and designed for one purpose only: to be invisible, untouchable, and utterly lethal. These weren't just cloaked ships. They were ghosts in space, undetectable even by the most advanced alien sensors. The aliens had mocked our crude ships, but they never realized that our real weapons were the ones they couldn't even perceive. And now, as the alien fleet hovered over Earth, gloating in their so-called victory, humanity's trap was about to be sprung. Deep in the void, aboard the flagship Nemesis, Admiral Elias Carter watched the enemy fleet on his display. His crew sat in absolute silence, their hands poised over their controls, waiting for his command. Outside the ship's hull, the darkness stretched endlessly, the vastness of space swallowing all sound. But Carter could feel it, the tension, the anticipation, the weight of the moment before the storm. He tapped a single command into the console. A simple transmission, broadcasted openly, directly into the heart of the alien fleet. "You laughed at us." His voice was calm, steady, but beneath it was the cold fury of an entire species pushed to the brink. "You thought we were weak. You thought we didn't stand a chance. But there's something you should know about humanity." He leaned forward, staring at the glowing alien ships on the screen. "We always hide our aces." And with that, the stealth fleet decloaked. One by one, they appeared, silent war machines materializing out of nothing, emerging from the abyss like vengeful phantoms. The aliens had thought themselves untouchable, had believed they were the masters of this war. But now, for the first time, their arrogance turned to fear. Because humanity wasn't just fighting back. We were about to win. For a moment, there was silence. Not just on the human channels, but across the alien fleet. Their mocking voices had vanished, their arrogance replaced by stunned disbelief. They had spent weeks taunting us, laughing at our so-called outdated ships and crude technology. But now, as the stealth fleet emerged from the void, they finally understood. Aboard the Nemesis, Admiral Carter watched the alien vessels on the screen. Their formation had been tight before, a display of dominance, but now there were subtle shifts, hesitations, tiny movements as their ships adjusted course, uncertain. They had never expected this. The Nemesis was a beast of a warship, sleek and deadly, but it wasn't alone. Hundreds of ships, all hidden in the darkness, now surrounded the enemy. Battleships, carriers, and strike cruisers, every single one designed with technology so advanced, so secret, that even Earth's own population barely knew they existed. Years of planning, of silent construction in the far reaches of the solar system, all leading to this moment. Carter didn't move from his seat. He knew better than to underestimate them, even now. The aliens were powerful, their technology terrifying. But power meant nothing without strategy, and strategy had always been humanity's strength. "Status?" he asked quietly. "Full decloak successful," Commander Reyes responded. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge of excitement beneath it. "Enemy fleet is holding position. No immediate signs of retreat or attack." "They're in shock," Carter murmured. He studied the screen, watching the enemy's hesitation stretch longer than he expected. Then a new transmission came through. Not from his own fleet, but from the aliens. The deep, guttural voice of an alien commander filled the bridge. This is impossible. The usual arrogance was gone. In its place was something else. Something colder. You were studied. Your weapons were measured. There was nothing like this in your arsenal. Carter allowed himself a small smile. You should know by now, he said evenly. We don't show our real weapons until we need to. There was a pause. Then a low growl. You think this changes the outcome? You think your tricks will save you? The screen flickered, showing a scan of Earth below. Cities still smoldered. Ruins stretched across continents. Millions were dead. The alien fleet had already done its damage, their warships devastating entire regions in their path. They believed they had already won. Carter's jaw clenched. He had seen the reports, listened to the desperate calls for help that had gone unanswered because humanity had been forced to wait. Forced to let the aliens believe we had nothing left. It had taken everything in him not to strike earlier. But patience had been necessary. Sacrifices had been necessary. Because this battle wasn't just about survival. It was about ensuring the enemy never came back. They think they still have control, Reyes muttered beside him. That we're just buying time. Carter exhaled slowly. The aliens were powerful, but they had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed humanity would crumble. That we would surrender, broken and afraid. They didn't understand what happened when you backed humans into a corner. A new report flashed across his display. The fleet was fully in position. Every hidden warship now surrounded the enemy, their weapons primed, their stealth advantage gone but no longer needed. The aliens were the ones trapped now. Carter tapped his console, opening a direct transmission again. His voice was steady, but this time there was no need for subtlety. We gave you a chance to leave, he said. You laughed at us. You thought we were weak. He leaned forward slightly. That was your last mistake. There was no response. Not right away. But Carter could see it, even without words. The aliens were beginning to realize. Their laughter had stopped. Their arrogance was fading. And for the first time, they knew what it felt like to be afraid. The war wasn't over. Not yet. But now it was humanity's turn to strike. Deep in the void, the silence stretched, thick with unspoken tension. The alien fleet remained motionless, their massive warships no longer brimming with arrogance but with uncertainty. Aboard the Nemesis, Admiral Carter studied the screen, watching for their next move. He knew the enemy wasn't finished. A species that had conquered countless worlds wouldn't surrender so easily. But they weren't invincible. They just hadn't learned that yet. Carter's fingers hovered over the console. A single command, and the stealth fleet would open fire, cutting through the enemy with weapons they never expected. But he hesitated. Not out of doubt. No, he was certain of their strategy, but because he wanted to see what the aliens would do now that their confidence had been shattered. He wanted to hear them speak, to see if their tone had changed. The transmission came moments later. The same alien commander's voice, but this time, the mocking edge was gone. You have hidden your weapons well, human, the voice admitted, slower this time, as if weighing each word carefully. But we are not without tricks of our own. Carter narrowed his eyes. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The moment the enemy realized they had underestimated humanity, and would try to correct that mistake. Multiple energy spikes detected, a technician called out. They're charging something big. Carter already knew what was coming. The enemy hadn't attacked yet, meaning they were recalibrating, trying to adjust their battle strategy now that the field was even. They still believed power was on their side. That even if we had caught them off guard, they could still outmatch us in sheer force. They're moving into a new formation, Reyes reported, eyes scanning the tactical map. It's not an attack pattern, it's defensive. That told Carter everything. They weren't retreating, but they weren't striking either. They were bracing for a counterattack, testing whether humanity would go on the offensive. He tapped his console, sending out a private command to the fleet. Not to attack, not yet, but to hold steady. The longer they let the enemy stew in their own uncertainty, the more it would wear them down. But before Carter could say another word, another voice crackled onto the channel, this time from deep within Earth's remaining command centers. This is General Lorne, the voice said, urgent and clipped. Admiral, we have a problem. Carter's stomach tightened. He could already hear the tension in Lorne's voice. Go ahead. Enemy ground forces are regrouping. We thought they were falling back after the fleet decloaked, but something's changed. We're picking up movement, fast and coordinated. Carter frowned. That didn't make sense. The aliens had held the upper hand until now, but with their fleet in jeopardy, their ground troops should have been scrambling for an escape route. Instead, they were reorganizing. That meant they were following new orders. They're stalling, Reyes said suddenly, her eyes widening. That's why the fleet isn't attacking. They're waiting for something. Carter exhaled sharply. He had expected a countermeasure, but this was something else. If the enemy was buying time for their ground forces to regroup, it meant they still had a plan in motion. Something that could shift the balance again. He turned back to the display, his mind racing. He couldn't afford to focus only on the space battle. The war wasn't just up here. It was still raging on the surface, where humanity's last strongholds were barely holding together. If the aliens had another move prepared, something bigger, something worse. General, what's the scale of their regrouping? Carter asked, his voice sharp now. There was a pause. Then Lorne's voice came through again, lower this time. It's not just a regroup, Admiral. We're seeing a pattern in their movements. Like they're setting up for something specific. Carter's pulse quickened. He had spent years studying warfare, both human and alien, and there was one thing he knew without a doubt. When an enemy suddenly changed tactics in the middle of a battle, it meant they had a hidden weapon waiting to be unleashed. And whatever it was about to change everything. The Nemesis trembled as distant explosions flickered across the darkness, distant flashes of energy lighting up the void like dying stars. The enemy fleet wasn't retreating. It wasn't attacking either. It was waiting. Admiral Carter's grip tightened around the armrest of his chair. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. The alien ships had all the firepower to engage, yet they held their position, their weapons primed but not unleashed. It wasn't hesitation. It was strategy. Aboard the bridge, the tension crackled in the air like static before a storm. Reyes's voice cut through the silence. Sir, I've got new readings coming in from Earth's surface. This isn't just a regroup. It's a full-scale repositioning. Carter's pulse quickened. Show me. The holographic display shifted, showing live satellite feeds of the battle below. Alien ground forces were moving in strange, deliberate formations. Hundreds of them, spreading out in synchronized waves. Not an attack. Not a retreat. Something else. Then a new signal spiked on the scanners, deep below the planet's surface. A low, pulsing energy signature. One that hadn't been there before. Admiral, Lorne's voice came through tense. We just detected massive power surges from their underground structures. This isn't standard movement. They're activating something. Carter felt the weight of those words settle over him. The aliens had already devastated half the planet, wiping out entire cities with their orbital bombardments. If they had something even worse waiting underground, can we pinpoint their command centers? Carter asked. Already working on it, Reyes replied. But that's not the problem. She turned to him, her expression grim. The energy readings don't match any known alien weapons we've encountered before. This isn't just a power source. It's something different. Carter's mind raced. The aliens had underestimated humanity's stealth capabilities. But had we underestimated them? Then the transmission from the alien fleet came through again. The same commander as before, but this time, the mocking tone was gone. You believe your hidden weapons make you powerful, the alien said. You think you have turned the tide. A brief pause, as if letting the words sink in. Then a low, guttural chuckle. But you are fighting the wrong war. Carter didn't respond. He waited. You call us invaders, the alien continued. But we did not come here to conquer. We came to eradicate. To cleanse. Another pause. Then, the words that sent ice through Carter's veins. And now the cleansing begins. On the holographic map, the underground energy signatures spiked. Every sensor aboard the Nemesis blared warnings. Then, without warning, a massive shockwave burst from the planet's surface. Not an explosion, something worse. Every human vessel in orbit flickered as systems scrambled to compensate for the sudden pulse. Communications crackled. Shields fluctuated. The Nemesis itself shuddered violently. Carter gritted his teeth. Report. Reyes scanned the readings, her face pale. That wasn't a weapon strike. Her fingers flew over the console. Admiral, they just activated something deep within Earth's crust. Lorne's voice cut in over the channel. Whatever they did, we're seeing seismic activity worldwide. Not localized, global. This isn't an attack. A sharp breath. It's an extinction event. Carter's heart pounded. This wasn't a counterstrike. It was the plan all along. The aliens hadn't come to fight a war. They had come to end one before it could begin. The pieces clicked together in his mind. They had mocked humanity, toyed with us, let us believe we could resist, because it never mattered. We were never meant to survive this fight. And now, unless they stopped whatever had been activated, Earth itself would become the battleground's final casualty. The ground beneath Earth's last surviving cities trembled. Buildings groaned under the pressure of unseen forces, streets split apart, and oceans swelled as something deep below the planet awakened. It wasn't just seismic activity. This was deliberate, calculated. The aliens hadn't just come to destroy. They had buried their true weapon beneath our feet, waiting for the right moment to activate it. Admiral Carter's breath was steady, but his mind raced. On the Nemesis, the sensors were lighting up with energy spikes unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Reyes gripped the console beside him, her eyes scanning the chaotic data. Sir, if these readings are right, they aren't just triggering earthquakes. They're rewriting the planet's entire energy grid. Lorne's voice came in from the surface, sharp with urgency. Carter, whatever this is, it's artificial. Their forces aren't retreating because they don't need to. We think they've been building something beneath us since they arrived. A pause, then a grim realization. Maybe even before that. Carter's jaw clenched. Are you saying this was the plan from the start? I'm saying we might not be standing on our Earth anymore, Lorne said. Before Carter could respond, a new alarm blared. The tactical screen shifted, pulling away from Earth's surface, and what it revealed sent a chill through the entire bridge. Above the planet, just beyond the human fleet's blockade, something was emerging from the darkness. Not another warship, not another fleet. It was bigger. A structure, no, a vessel, if it could even be called that. It had been hidden behind layers of cloaked interference, concealed in deep space just beyond human detection. But now it was moving, descending. Reyes whispered, "That's not a ship." Carter knew she was right. The alien fleet had been a distraction, their orbital bombardments, their ground invasions. Everything had been misdirection. They had let humanity believe we had a chance, that we were on the brink of turning the tide. But the real invasion had been unfolding beneath their feet, and now the final phase was beginning. "Sir," one of the officers at the sensor station spoke, voice shaking. "It's locking onto Earth's core." Carter's mind reeled. If that thing was tapping directly into the planet's energy, if it had been designed to manipulate Earth itself, then this wasn't just about wiping out humanity. The planet was being repurposed. The alien transmission came through again, but this time, there was no arrogance, no mockery. Only cold certainty. "You were never the enemy," the voice said. "You were the infestation." On the screen, the massive structure pulsed, sending out a ripple of gravitational distortion that stretched across the battlefield. Human ships lurched, struggling against the pull, but it wasn't targeting them. It was aimed at Earth. Lorne's voice snapped through the comms. "Carter, if they complete whatever they're doing, the planet's done. They're not just destroying it, they're transforming it." Carter's fists tightened. He had spent years preparing for war, for invasion, for an enemy that wanted to conquer. But this was something else. This wasn't war. This was eradication. The Nemesis shook violently as the alien structure pulled more energy from Earth's core. The planet itself groaned under the strain, tectonic plates grinding, entire regions collapsing into darkness. Time was running out. Admiral Carter's eyes locked onto the tactical display. The stealth fleet still had the advantage, but what good was firepower if the planet was already lost? He had to make a decision, one that would either save humanity or leave nothing behind but an empty world. "Lorne, can you get forces inside that structure?" Carter demanded. Lorne's response was immediate. "Negative. That thing is generating a gravity field too strong for entry. Even if we could land, we don't know what's inside." Carter clenched his jaw. A direct assault was impossible. Blasting it apart from orbit might destabilize the entire planet. There had to be another way. Reyes's voice cut through the chaos. "Sir, I found something." Before they activated the structure, it was transmitting on a frequency we didn't recognize. But now it's shifting, almost like it's syncing with something else. Carter's mind raced. Something else? Where? Reyes hesitated, then pulled up new readings. Not where. When? She turned, eyes wide. It's not just draining Earth's energy. It's reaching back, tapping into something ancient. The realization hit Carter like a punch to the gut. The aliens hadn't built this device when they arrived. It had always been here, buried beneath Earth long before humanity took its first breath. "This isn't just an invasion," Carter muttered. "It's a reclamation. A sudden alert cut through the tension. The alien fleet was finally moving, not to fight but to leave. Their warships pulled back, slipping into faster-than-light trajectories. They had no intention of staying, because they didn't need to. The device was finishing what they started. Carter turned to Reyes. "Can we override it?" "Not from here," she said, frustration in her voice. "But if we could disrupt its energy flow, force a feedback loop. That would trigger a chain reaction," Lorne finished over the comms. "Might stop it. Might also rip the planet apart." It was a risk Carter was willing to take. "Get me the Aegis," he ordered. Moments later, the captain of the Aegis, one of Earth's last remaining heavy warships, appeared on screen. "Admiral?" Carter's voice was steady. "You're the closest ship with an antimatter payload. We need a direct strike on the device's core." A beat of silence. Then the captain nodded. "Understood." The Aegis broke formation, speeding toward the alien structure. The gravity field fought against it, but the warship pushed through, locking onto the target. Then a final transmission from the aliens came through. A whisper, cold and knowing. "You think you are saving your world," the voice said. "But you were never meant to have it." Carter ignored it. "Fire." The Aegis launched its payload. A blinding eruption of light consumed the structure. Energy crackled, the gravity field collapsed, and for a moment silence. Then the planet trembled. Shockwaves spread across the surface as the device imploded, pulling itself inward before detonating in a final burst of energy. The sky split open with violent storms, the ground shook, and then nothing. The readings went dead. On the bridge, no one moved. Every screen was dark for a breathless moment. Then, one by one, systems came back online. Earth was damaged badly, but it was still there. The invasion was over. But as Carter exhaled, Reyes spoke again, voice unsteady. "Sir," before the device collapsed, it sent a signal. Carter turned slowly. "Where?" Reyes's face was pale. "Deep space." A pause. And something just responded. Beyond the wreckage of the alien fleet, beyond the stars, something unseen stirred. The battle was over. But the war had just begun. The silence stretched across the bridge of the Nemesis, heavier than anything Admiral Carter had felt before. The battle was over. Earth had survived. But Reyes's words lingered in his mind like an echo he couldn't escape. Something had answered the signal. Carter looked at the main display. The alien fleet was gone, their remnants drifting as debris in orbit. The massive structure that had nearly rewritten Earth's existence was nothing but a dead crater now, its twisted remains sinking into the ruins below. But the real question was what came next. Reyes was already working, fingers flying across the console. "Trying to pinpoint the location of the response," she said, eyes scanning lines of data. It was brief but powerful. Lorne's voice came through, rough from the battle. "Any chance it's just some automated distress call?" Carter wanted to believe that. But deep down, he knew better. "Doubt it," he said. "The way they fought, the way they executed this attack, it was never about winning a war. It was about setting something in motion." A new scan flickered to life on the screen. The signal had traveled deep into space, beyond any known star charts. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. No trace. No location. Just a lingering certainty that something was now watching. Reyes let out a slow breath. "It's gone, sir. Whatever it was, it didn't leave us a trail." Carter nodded, but it didn't bring relief. If anything, the weight in his chest grew heavier. He turned his attention back to Earth. The planet had changed. Cities lay in ruins, landscapes reshaped by the alien device's collapse. Billions had died. The survivors would have to rebuild, but at what cost? A message came through from ground command. Lorne again, this time quieter. "Carter, people are looking for answers. We won, but..." His voice trailed off. Carter understood. Victory didn't feel like it should. There were no celebrations, no cheers over the comms. Just the quiet realization that they had survived, barely. And that something out there knew they had survived. "Put out a general broadcast," Carter said. "Tell the people we held the line. That Earth is still ours." His voice hardened. "And that we'll be ready for whatever comes next." Lorne gave a grim chuckle. "You think they're coming back?" Carter's gaze lingered on the empty void where the signal had vanished. "Not them," he murmured. "Something worse." A long silence stretched between them. Then Lorne sighed. "Understood." The comms cut, and Carter sat back in his chair, exhaustion creeping into his bones. The stealth fleet had proven humanity wasn't defenseless. They had faced an enemy beyond their understanding and survived. But had they just drawn attention to themselves? Had their defiance awakened something even greater? He didn't have the answers. But for now, Earth was still standing. And that was enough.